Online, it'll be funny. Mhm. Yeah.
If you are joining us here today, I am saying a happy early Mother's Day. We are going to discuss the mothers of Star Trek. And of course, if this is your first time listening, this is the dyslexic Trekkie joining me. She is my little sister. We both grew up sci fi, but very much Trek. And so our conversations come from the same background and yet often very diverging opinions because we are very different people. And may I
Mhm.
introduce the dyslexic Trekkie?
Hello, everyone. I never quite know what to say here other than hello. My name is Erica, and I'm the dyslexic Trekkie. I have my ensign on my lap. If you don't know, he's the one in the corner in my picture. His name is Ray Bradbury, Ensign Bradbury, and he's already given me my Mother's Day gift. I have to clean out the litter box later.
Well, then I have had so many gifts in my life, especially this last couple of weeks with the extra fur babies. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
I am just
Mm-hmm.
drowning in presents, really.
Free fertilizer.
Oh my gosh, don't even. I
Yeah.
This says this is not Trek related, but I had to completely carpet clean my whole family room and all the hallways, and then the next week I had to do it again because it's just been that bad. So
uh,
my
when you
house
remember,
actually smells decent today, and it's already been like 3 days. So I'm hopeful that I might make it all the way to the weekend, or 4 days
where
now.
you go, I love my animals. I have to remind myself of it, but I do love them.
Oh, I have practice. I had to remind myself often that I love my children. So
Yeah.
loving my animals is not that difficult. The only difference is they
Yeah.
won't move out.
You
So
know, I love when people say that being a pet parent isn't the same as being a real parent. And I do agree. There are definitely more challenges. However, there is one thing: actual children grow up,
and they
animals
leave.
don't. Yes, animals don't. They just
I
become, they are perpetually two.
It's what I tried to tell Will when we got our first animal together. When we got Huck, who was a beagle pointer mix, and he was like, he's so goofy. I said, all dogs. And I'm not even a dog owner, but it took me about
Mhm.
20 minutes with this dog to go. I guess all dogs act like they're two. They're toddlers, and they are forever toddlers. They are
Yep.
accidentally throwing up somewhere, accidentally pooping or peeing somewhere, accidentally putting something in their mouth they shouldn't, accidentally walking out the door when you weren't looking, accidentally walking in the bathroom when you don't want them there, sometimes trying to crawl into the bathtub when you don't want them. They are perpetual.
Yeah.
Oh, and they can't eat without making a mess. Oh my gosh, the dog food just goes everywhere. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
that's the
with a
same
cat,
complaints I would
you
have
will
for any of my
never,
children.
yeah. And with Ray, I know I will never pee alone again.
No. Yes, thank you. Urinating by yourself is such a
So,
privilege. I don't know if people understand this. This is not Trek motherhood. This is just motherhood.
yes. Although I learned something that part of the reason is dogs and cats too, they never, because they're so vulnerable in the wild when they're taking care of their business, that they very rarely go and do it alone. They always have a friend who watches, so they think they're keeping us safe. So it's like, thank you, I appreciate it. Can you look the other way or
Bobby tries to
not
crawl up like
crawl into
between
my
my legs.
not crawl
Yeah.
into the pants? Okay, so actually, on the topic of Star Trek mothers, who's your favorite Star Trek mom?
Well, there were three Trek moms that okay, well, one that I was fairly sure you would talk about, so I wasn't going to say anything. But there were two that I think in these past couple of years, especially with the updated versions of Star Trek, that I thought might be worth a discussion. And
Mhm.
my first one is going to be Amanda Grayson, Spock's
Yeah,
mother, Michael's adopted mother, and someone that we got to know a lot more through Discovery. Although she was always very well represented on the original series and in, I believe, I want to say, The Search for Spock. Or not Search for Spock, Voyage Home. Maybe it always be Search, no, Search for Spock. Anyway,
it okay
Wrath of Khan, actually. No. Anyway, yeah,
at the end of, or at the very beginning of Star Trek 4,
that's what
before
I'm
they
thinking.
leave in the Klingon one, and he's doing that little test of him and how he's doing, and he's stumped by how do you feel? Yeah,
Thank you.
right
Voyage
there.
Home.
That's
I was thinking he's taking the test, but I was like, I couldn't quite remember. I was like, I think it's because of Search for
yeah,
Spock, but it's not Search
because
for Spock. It's Let's
he
Go Find
spent
the
the
Whales.
entire episode in a robe,
Yes, and
or
he
we're
looked very
talking over each
fashionable.
other.
I think that was because he was so busy working that having to do a fashion change every time, that way he'd go behind the camera, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and he's just comfy.
Right, because Leonard Nimoy actually directed that, didn't he?
Yeah,
I
and
forgot that.
also didn't have to worry about the ears. Whenever he has to cover his ears, it's one less piece of makeup he has to worry about.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think that fashion choice may have been more function over fashion, just for
yeah.
practicality. But yeah, I really liked how they went into Amanda's backstory, because not only do we know now that she raised a a son who is trying to deal with having a human mother and these bits of human emotions trying to overtake him while he's trying to be the perfect Vulcan, at
Hmm.
least in the timeline we grew up watching. And then to see her kind of go and then have to try to nurture a human who's also trying to be very logical and fit in with logical. She had to, I would think, seriously be worried about her children's mental health, like on a daily
Hmm.
basis.
Yeah, I think there's something that ties into it as well because she has to raise them very, very differently for just what they are. I mean, like you said, one's a human, one's a Vulcan, and it kind of ties into something we have some experience with in having a neurotypical child and a neuroatypical child, and having our mom have to try to find different ways of parenting two very different types of kids. It's one of those things where, yeah, it's aliens, but it relates very heavily into just, well, normal parenting as well, if you have very different kinds of situations with your kids. And another thing is, in the original series, we know she moved to Vulcan after she married her husband because she married a Vulcan, and
Right.
at the time when it was created, a wife moved to where her husband was. That was just
Right.
how it was.
Right.
And in Discovery, there's a moment when that's kind of addressed. It's very subtle when they're in the cave and Spock is writing the
Yeah.
numbers because he's kind of cracked. And she goes, "Would you have ever moved to Earth? Would you have ever settled on Earth with me?"
Yeah.
Like that question is finally asked, because nowadays that is a question we would ask.
Yes. And but I don't know, that has more to do with the relationship between she and her husband, not so much she as a parent. The
But
sacrifices
yeah,
we make to be with a man might be different than the sacrifice, or one woman, not to leave anyone
but yeah,
out.
I'm just saying though, it's a layer to the character that was added in Discovery
True.
that I think is interesting.
Yeah,
And I
and
think
no,
if
go ahead.
if if Spock had been raised on Earth and he was half Vulcan, half human, I have a feeling he would have had a human culture more pressed into him.
Oh,
Maybe
absolutely.
not completely, and it would have, but then Cirque would have been the odd one out So I think it does kind of inform some things in a way. I don't know. It's just one of those things. I think it's interesting how we address um, different things and make it make sense within the franchise.
Well, I think Amanda introducing
Yeah.
Michael to Alice in Wonderland to help her figure out and deal
Mm-hmm.
with the emotions that she had and how her feelings fitting in somewhere that she doesn't quite fit in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make herself a round peg that, or a square peg that fits into a round hole. It, it it
Yeah.
speaks to, I think, how Amanda was trying to do her very best. As far as someone trying to
Mm-hmm.
fit in culturally, if Spock had grown up on Earth, I think it would depend on if he decided that he wanted to latch onto human culture, or if he wanted to
Mm-hmm.
latch onto Vulcan culture, because then also we have Worf, who
Mm-hmm.
very much did his very best to grow up Klingon in a human world, in a human environment, in a human family. And his parents very much encouraged him to do that. His mother especially. She said she tried so hard to make Klingon blood pie, and he didn't. She figured out she could make it. And then his favorite drink is prune juice. So I mean,
Oh
and that
yeah.
man has not a drop of human blood in him, so it has nothing to do with taste buds, but it has to do with the mother. The mother behind it, which I wasn't going to bring her up, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a Worf thing. I think depending, it's a nurture versus nature, but it's also the strength of the personality and what the person decides
Oh
that is who they
yeah.
are, or maybe not decides,
Yeah. And
but
I we yeah. We could have a
realizes. Go
whole
ahead.
discussion one day on Worf alone because I have a lot of thoughts on him being a Klingon raised in Russia. Um,
But it's a Russia in the future, not one that we would probably recognize today at all. I would
yeah,
hope.
that like I said, I don't mean the culture, I mean the climate
No,
because
that's
Klingons don't
true.
handle cold well. Kling,
And yeah, that's
we
true.
yeah. But like I said, that's a whole conversation for a whole other time. But yeah, I like the episode when we meet the Rozhenkos because I can totally see those two making Worf who he is.
Yes.
Just because they're like you said, they're not going to push him to be anything other than who he is. And Worf had he I think he was 3 when he he is more like 5 or 6 human years.
Right.
When we see Alexander at 3, he looks like he's about that age.
Yeah.
And I just like I can see him saying, "No, I need Klingon things," and they going, "Okay, we'll figure it out." And yeah.
And what's odd is that there is a parallel between the way Worf lost Worf lost his family and Michael lost hers because it was
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of battle, taken in by a alien culture, and it
Mm-hmm.
was just such an opposing way. Although Michael was Sarek's experiment, and Worf was just the Rozhenko's child.
There.
So yeah, big difference. But yeah, so anyway, I thought Amanda was an interesting place to start, and we got on a tirade about characters
Mm-hmm.
instead. But I thought she was a good place to start.
Sorry.
I know
Well,
I want to real quickly want to bring up one other, and then let you bring up. I know who you want to talk about. So I wanted to also real quick mention Dr. Crusher this past season and seeing her as a different type of mother because we saw her in TNG as a mother to a child who
mm-hmm.
was gifted, and now we see her as a mother who is basically hiding her child to make sure that he has a chance to survive. That didn't go as well as she had planned in the end, but um, the way that she approached motherhood was so vastly different. And I think that I wanted to make a quick point on that. You are not always the same mother to each child. And obviously there was a huge decades gap between motherhood raising Wesley and motherhood raising Jack, but they were two different children, and therefore you have to be two different kinds of parents because it was two different situations. And I thought that was
uh,
interesting. I am sure she was still very loving and supportive mother to Jack no matter what, but he was a very different kind of person when he grew up. A little bit pirate, a little bit thief, a little bit of naughtiness going on. I could not see Wesley holding up somebody and be like,
No,
"We're dropping off these goods. Let me
I
get a little bribery in first."
I
So
I like there's a
different.
moment, yeah, there's a moment when he's talking about basically flirting his way through things and saying, "Who do you think was there when I did it?" And I saw some pushback on that, like Beverly Crusher standing by and teaching him how to do that. That is not what a parent does. However, I can also see her with Wesley. She was like, "This is the kid I have. This is what he can do. How do I give him the best chance possible?" And then he has Jack, and he's saying again, "This is," or she's saying again, "This is the kid I have. This is what he can do. How can I give him the best life possible?" And so she encourages him to do the things he's really good at. And one of them apparently is flirting with people.
Well, and the environment was different too. Her
Yeah.
job gave Wesley the opportunity to learn more. Not only just obviously being on the bridge, but he worked in engineering and he worked behind the scenes to help set up things when diplomats came. So he got what he needed for his personality, for the type of person he was to be and was then. And the
Mm-hmm.
difference in upbringing and lifestyle had to do with the fact also that as Jack is growing up, Beverly is on the outskirts, out of Starfleet's districts, out of their
Mm-hmm.
lines to go bring aid, and different tactics that would work in the Federation will need to be used out in the
Yeah.
boonies.
Yeah.
And so cultivating those skills, it may have been his natural talent and he was able to practice, but it also may have been, well,
Mm-hmm.
this is where we are, this is what we better be good at, because he's also, what did they say at the end, he's able to speak a bazillion languages, he's pretty good at engineering,
Oh
he's
yeah.
fair at medical stuff. Where would you like me, Captain Seven? So he's not without skill
Yeah.
or brains, just not what they focused on for the series.
No,
And
yeah. And I almost think it would be weird if Crusher's kid wasn't in some way a genius, but she also made sure he went to medical school. Given what she was trying to hide about him, making sure he had the chance to go to medical school and get his British accent, um
did she say
was,
medical
I
school?
mean,
I just
that's
thought it was
that's
regular school.
I know, well, I mean, he's a doctor, but I know
Well,
I know he made I know she made sure he went to university in England. I just can't remember off the top of my head where.
yeah, I know she said England. I just couldn't
And
remember if it was at medical school. I didn't hear the
I
medical school part
I
when I
might
watched it.
have, yeah, I might have Mandela affected myself there, but
Just an
um
inference because of the
I
situation. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Now, I figured that you would want to bring up one of our favorites, a classic, when it comes to moms. But I was just guessing, so I will let
Lwaxana.
you pick. That's who I figured you'd want to talk about. That's
Well,
why I did not put her on my
well
list.
it's yeah. Well, it's funny because last year that was my Mother's Day special, was very specifically the episode when we learned she had a daughter before Deanna, and
Right?
that whole episode. But the season this year, my Mother's Day special is when Deanna got pregnant from the light that
Mm.
basically every time I think of it, I think of Zeus becoming a wind that impregnates somebody, but it's that same kind of, yeah. And I was comparing how they were both mothers, and Deanna is incredibly, or Lwaxana is incredibly over the top in everything, but at the same time, uh, like the others, she let Deanna become who she was going to become and encouraged it. Overbearing as all get out,
Oh,
but
yeah.
wasn't, yeah. But I don't know. I always love Lwaxana, and I she always cracks me up. But underneath it all, she's just so fiercely devoted to making sure her child is safe and well.
Well, and I think that is the focus of a lot of the Star Trek moms is that they're all devoted to being a parent. Sometimes they're
Mm-hmm.
also devoted to their career. Sometimes they're also devoted to a hobby. Sometimes they're also, but they're always a devoted parent. When something happens with their parent,
Mm-hmm.
all thing, or when something happens as a parent, they drop all other things, and the focus is the child. And of course, this is TV and
Mm-hmm.
fantasy, and sometimes that isn't possible in reality. But I think it's the example that we grew up with and hope to see in ourselves as
Mm-hmm.
people, so that we are caring for the people around us who are in need of our support, at
Yeah.
rather that be parent or anything else. But yeah, I think Lwaxana is the epitome of I am my own person and I have my
Mm-hmm.
own life, and I think that is a really good thing to show as a mom, because a lot of times we give up a big part of who we are because we are now mom.
Mm-hmm.
And they never showed Lwaxana in that light. She was very much Lwaxana Troi. And I can't
Daughter
even
of the
say the
fifth
whole thing.
house. Okay, can I do this? Lwaxana
Go
Troi,
for it, please.
daughter of the fifth. Okay, now I have to start again. Lwaxana Troi, daughter of the fifth house, holder of the
Holder of the.
sacred chalice of Riggs, heir to holy rings of Beta Z. It's a matter of making sure I get it in the right order, and I'm not sure. I have to check.
It's
I,
a
I did
numbers
that
game.
last year. Yeah. I joke that I now have to memorize all of Worf's title,
Oh
including
gosh.
the chamomile tea. Worf, son of Moog, of the House
House of the
Martok,
Martok, son
House of
of
Martok,
is it Dimitri? I want to say Dimitri.
son. I want to say he also says House of the House of Dmitry
House of
Rozhenko, so
Verzhenko, son of,
House
yeah,
of
House of
Rozhenko,
Verzhenko, son of.
Bane, Bane of the Duras sisters, Slayer of Galron.
There you
It's
go.
it's getting it's
Would
getting
you
the
like some
Rozhenko
chamomile
part certain.
tea?
Yes, would you? I put sugar in the chamomile tea. Would you like some?
The best entry of any
Oh
character, I think, in all of Star Trek, because you're just like, and I'm sorry, what? What, no scones? Um, yeah, that was fantastically fun. And
no.
but okay, was there anything else you wanted to add? Any other? We're just basically sit here and chat and come up with a couple of things.
Oh well, there's always what I never can remember Ensign Wildman's last or first name.
Samantha
I know
Wildman,
Naomi. Samantha. Thank you.
you're very
I
welcome. I was pregnant when
here.
that came, or I had just had Audrey when that came out. She was a year old when they found out that she was pregnant. And that is why I remember it, because I was like, on a starship, oh, by herself. Man, I kind of knew how that felt. So,
And for 2 years,
yeah,
a year and a
well,
half.
she was pregnant at
Two.
the end of, no, she got pregnant. She was pregnant for like the whole first
She
season of
had to have.
Voyager, and we never knew. But we never know how
Yeah.
fast. I mean, that did that all happen in the first month? You can easily be pregnant a month and a half, 2 months,
Oh.
and never have a sign and be
Oh.
perfectly healthy and be paying attention to what's happening with your body. And
So
you can be
the
pregnant
other.
much longer
Yeah.
than that as well. I just never had that experience
Yeah.
personally.
The thing is in a. It's in Illuvium. I can never say it right. It's Elysium, something like that. When we
Pardon
find
me.
out she's pregnant, I reviewed that one, and it was just around the time Roe v. Wade was overturned. So I had my own take on it.
Oh, I
But
don't blame you.
but the thing of it was, it's made very clear that her husband's species has long gestations. And I think it would make sense if like the first few months there just really aren't signs of pregnancy for one reason
Yeah,
or another.
and that's
And
something
then
we don't
because
know.
yeah. Yeah.
We
And
know all
yeah,
alien children are
Audrey.
5 years old by the time they're two, but we don't know how pregnant a woman is. And then if you in a Klingon and a human, they're pregnant for like 4 months.
Yeah.
I think it was more like
Oh,
5 or 6, but still.
and then there's also always Keiko. I love Keiko. Hick O'Brien,
No, I know, but what was
Molly.
wrong with her
Yeah.
pregnancy other than the fact that
No,
Worf
nothing
delivered?
wrong. I'm just saying mothers on Star
Oh,
Trek. There's always
oh
so,
yes,
and
absolutely.
well, but she only carried the son for like half the term because of the accident.
Right. And Kira got the
And then
transfer. Yeah.
to make up for the fact that the actress got pregnant.
Yeah,
Oh
Nina
yeah,
Visitor was or Nana Visitor was having her second child, I want to say, because
yeah.
she had she had a baby right before the series started. She was talking about she had a
Considering
baby
the
just a few weeks or like maybe a month and a half before the premiere or was being filmed, and she had
really,
gartered herself up so she could fit into a uniform and look proper. And I was like,
I was,
we couldn't tell. She looked great.
I seriously, I'm going, damn. But then I know she ended up getting involved with Bashir, the actor with the actor. I Sadiq.
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah, Sadiq.
Okay, so it's funny because I saw something, um, one of the behind the scenes things when the whole Odo and Kira thing was going on when he's hiding how much he feels for her, and Nana was going, how would she not notice? How could she be so stupid as to not notice? And then she finds out Sadiq had a crush on her and they had been friends for years. And they ended up getting, I want to say they got married. I'm not sure. And she's going, okay, fine, it's believable because she had no clue that he was crushing on her the entire time they were just friends.
Now, I've had people think that I've had friends say, "Oh, we know you have a crush on so and so," and I'm like, "Oh, not even a little bit." People
Uh-huh.
from the outside thinking they see something that's actually really
Mm-hmm.
not there. But yeah, then there's he's following you around, changing his outfit, irritated when you're seeing somebody else. I feel like there's a sign there and you ought to be noticing it.
Mm-hmm.
They made it incredibly obvious. But it's nice to yeah, the as far as honoring moms in Trek, Nana would have to go up there because the woman had children all around her
Mm-hmm.
character, but never as her character, except when she was having
Yeah.
other people's children for them because of medical issues, which I think is
Oh yeah.
fantastic. How cool would it be? I wouldn't do it because I've done it enough, but how cool would it be to be like, okay, I'm an whatever, an athlete of some sort, and
Yeah.
taking 9 months out of my career, it's going to put me back 5 years, and here is so and so. And I know they do surrogates, but after the fact, after you're pregnant and being able
Right.
to transfer a child, that would lower a lot of things that people keep fighting to lower and keep taking away the rights of people who ought to have
Mm-hmm.
the anyway. Not that we
Mm-hmm.
discuss political issues, but if people would concentrate so much on making sure that women's health mattered as much as a guy getting a Woody,
What?
then I think that I think that a lot of these laws would be nearly unnecessary simply because we would already
Mm-hmm.
have the options of, people say, oh, we'll just take birth control. I am living proof that birth control does not always
Is
work.
not World War. And yeah, and the one that ticks
I
me
should
off
say
is
my
when
children are
people,
living proof. Anyway,
yeah. So the one that ticks me off is that I don't have an issue with abortion, except for when it's used as their birth control. I said, do you have any idea how expensive an abortion is? Like
people don't use it
nobody is
as.
going. No, no, and I say it is. It no matter what stage you're in, it's invasive. This is not something you do because you don't feel like putting a condom on. This is something you do because the condom broke.
I'm
And I'm
yeah.
totally off subject. How
No, it's
about,
okay. We aren't talking about fatherhood. We'll
yeah,
talk about that
how
next month.
about, yeah, how about the chosen mothers?
Oh,
The
I'm
people
blanking.
who took on, huh?
Are we talking about Trek thing or are we talking about reality now?
Yeah, no, chosen mothers, people in the show who took on mother roles.
Oh, okay. Well,
Janeway.
I'm gonna go Janeway. Yeah, I was gonna say Janeway. She not only was a mother to
Mm-hmm.
Kes, a mother to Seven, but a mother to a shipload of lost people who have, most of them no family
Mm-hmm.
anywhere with them. If they did have family, they probably met them on the trip and married them on the way home. Um, yeah, she was a mother to
Yeah.
more children than anybody else I can think of on human on the show, and most of the aliens too. Um, who else?
Well, I
Well,
think
and then we've
there's.
got Cassidy Yates. Cassidy Yates was mother to Jake. Now, Jake was pretty much grown when Benjamin Sisko
Mm-hmm.
is gone, but you and I both know that once you're an adult, you don't stop wanting your mother.
Right.
So, those are my two
And
picks anyway.
and Jake Jake introduced her to Ben. So
This is
he
true.
chose his mom. He chose his surrogate mom. But I
That's
always
handy.
like I never had.
All right. Well, that was the end of our Zoom session. As you know, for now, all I have available is the free version, which gives us 40 minutes of chat, which gives us usually around 30 minutes on here. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you enjoyed this, please come back next week and give us a like below. Thanks so much for listening. And we will see you next week, where we will be talking about the stereotypes of Star Trek watchers and fans. Yes, we are going to be talking about the nerdiness and the basement dwellers of Trek.